Are your colleagues, including Congressman Lolota, on board? And should we assume that the Senate is too?
I'm not going to speak for all of my colleagues, except to say that this obviously was a good faith discussion with Secretary Bessent and the administration. And I know today that the Speaker and the administration and Secretary Bessent spoke with the Senate about the parameters of this deal. And it keeps the House language intact, which was critically important to all of us. And certainly addressing the issue of PTET, which is something many businesses throughout the country have been concerned about. Many senators are concerned about that as well. So, it was a good faith discussion and negotiation. And ultimately, while it's not 10 years, it's 5 years. The fact is, it is a 4x increase on the current SALT cap and provides real tax relief to middle class and working class families all across this country. In my district, 90+% of my constituents will be able to fully deduct their state and local taxes under this deal. And it keeps the House framework intact. So I think it's a big win. I think it's a strong agreement that ultimately will have the support to get across the finish line.
Well, I assume you mean to get across the finish line in the House. Are you worried that striking this compromise when senators, as we know, Republican senators care very little about this SALT issue might actually risk some votes in the other chamber?
Well, you look at a state like Florida, where property taxes have gone up 37% over the last 4 years. The fact is that this is not just a blue state issue. This impacts every state across the country, especially where you have high property taxes, high income taxes, or both, as in the case of New York, California, and New Jersey. But the fact is that keeping this at $10,000 or going down to zero will be a massive tax hike on middle class and working class families. This was a hard fought negotiation. The Senate was able to get the overall price down. So, that obviously is something that they were focused on. We were both able to solve the issue of PTET, which is important. But this issue of SALT was critically important to a number of us in the House. And I do think we've reached an agreement that will pass.
Would love to get into the state of play more broadly here, Congressman. We heard from the House Speaker this morning, Mike Johnson, who talked about what he's looking at here in terms of the timeline and that July 4th deadline we've already mentioned. Here's what he said.
We would still like to meet that July 4th self-imposed deadline, and the president likes that idea. I certainly like that idea, and so does Leader Thune. So we're in a wait-and-see posture in the House right here, and we'll see what happens. So we're ready to act.
Okay. So let's assume everybody's on the same page here and the Senate actually gets its work done this weekend, Congressman. I know that I'm assuming a lot there because the parliamentarian still has to rule on some pretty big items, including the current policy baseline. But let's say there's a vote-a-rama, this bill passes this weekend. Are House members returning early next week, like Eric Wasson said, or midweek for a vote? Do you see yourselves voting on the 3rd of July and you make it in time for the fireworks? What's the plan at this time?
Well, we're definitely all on standby. There's no question. The objective is to get a final agreement and get the bill voted on. I know the president and the White House want the bill to move. Obviously, the Senate needs to take up a bill and pass it. But I expect as soon as the Senate acts that we're going to be back in Washington, if not sooner. But I certainly expect that we will be back in D.C. next week.
Well, and then, of course, it becomes a question of counting the votes. I know you said you think you have a deal that will make it easy to pass in the House, but knowing that you have plenty of fiscally quite conservative colleagues who have already raised issue with the price tag, even when the bill was leaving the House, and now the price tag looks like it may be adjusted in the Senate, especially as the parliamentarian has taken out some measures that were intended to offset the costs of cutting taxes. How big is the uphill climb for your Republican conference leadership to get those people on board?
Look, this is the reality of life and politics. You're not going to get everything you want, and you negotiate to get the bill as far as you can on the issues that matter. Obviously, for me, the issue of SALT, Medicaid, the green energy tax credits. These have been key issues that I and many of my colleagues have been working on throughout these negotiations. But ultimately, you now have the White House working with the Senate, working with the Speaker, and I think you'll see the bill come together within the next few days, and it'll proceed forward. Everybody's not going to get everything they want out of this. I mean, for us on the issue of SALT, obviously, we fought as hard as we could here, and we got a very good deal. But you got to know when to say yes, and you got to know when to move forward. And so I think ultimately we were able to negotiate a big win that will certainly benefit my constituents and folks all across the country on this tax bill. As we all know, if we don't pass the tax bill, it'll be the single largest tax hike in American history. As it stands, this bill is going to provide the largest tax cut. You have the standard deduction being doubled. You have the expanded child tax credit. Mm-hmm. You have the 199 business tax credits. You have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, an enhanced senior tax credit to address the issue of Social Security taxes, plus the lifting of the cap on SALT. This is a big win for the American people, and ultimately we're going to have to get it across the finish line.
So do you expect to get a bill tonight? I know this is the Senate we're waiting for, Congressman, but will we see text? And if this SALT deal is printed in the text of that bill, does that mean you just clinched the Republican nomination for governor of New York?
Look, I don't know when the Senate is going to release the text of their bill. I know they're continuing to work through a number of issues, and obviously everybody's working towards a resolution here. And as far as the governor's race goes, we're in the process of, making a decision. Obviously this is an important win for New York. Democrats said for years that they would lift the cap on SALT. Chuck Schumer promised they would do it. They had the trifecta and never did. So to be able to deliver on this is obviously an important win. And certainly it wouldn't have got done without my New York colleagues, Andrew Garbarino, Elise Stefanik, Nick LaLota. We worked together as a team and we got it done. And we'll see how the governor's race shapes up in the coming weeks.